You are tired, not modern tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from too many emails or a night of scrolling through glowing rectangles. This is a different kind of tired. It sits deep in your bones. It has weight. It lingers. It isn't fixed with a nap or a strong cup of coffee, because coffee hasn't been invented yet. You are a peasant. Somewhere in Europe, sometime in the Middle Ages. Your name is likely forgotten by history. But your exhaustion, it would have been familiar, unchanging. A daily companion. We often imagine the Middle Ages in grand images. Kings in stone castles, knights in shining armor, grand cathedrals clawing at the sky. But that wasn't your life. Your world is smaller, it's lower to the ground, closer to the mud, closer to the animals, and much closer to hunger. So let's walk through a day in your life. A single day, enough to understand why you, like so many millions of others, were always tired. There is no rooster, no alarm, just the steady gray of pre-dawn light filtering through the thatch roof above your head. The cold is immediate, not dramatic, but constant. A dampness in the air that clings to your skin and seems to settle into your joints before you even sit up. You slept on straw, and not the fluffy kind. The kind that pokes and rustles and sometimes wriggles. You slept in your clothes because they are your only clothes, and you don't want to put on a frozen tunic in the dark. You shared the space with others. Family, probably. Maybe a few chickens, maybe lice, likely both. The floor is hard-packed earth. Your shoes, if you have them, are roughly stitched leather, already worn through. You rub your eyes. You scratch your scalp. You take a breath of cold, smoky air. There is no time to linger. Before you eat, you work. Always. The fire needs stirring. The coals need coaxing. Water must be fetched from the well or the stream, and it's likely half frozen. If you are a child, you're probably sent to do it. If you're an adult, you're probably too busy with something else. The animals are awake before you. The pig needs feeding. The goat is already bleeding. The chickens have found a way to make noise. Despite being some of the smallest creatures in the village, they demand attention, and they leave droppings wherever they like. Maybe you're lucky and have a bit of grain. Maybe not. If the harvest was poor, you've already started rationing. You've counted the days until spring. You've chewed bark or made soup from turnips and roots that taste like bitterness itself. There is no day off. There is no weekend. It's only feast days and holy days, and even those usually come with extra church, not rest. The concept of leisure belongs to someone else. Eventually, when the work of waking is finished, you eat. It is not a meal so much as fuel. A crust of bread. If you are lucky, a bit of pottage from the night before. Thin soupy stew of whatever was available. Grains perhaps, leeks, occasionally a bone for flavor. It is warm and that makes it precious. There is no sugar, no butter, no fresh fruit in winter. You may drink a bit of ale, because the water is not always safe. Not strong ale, but small beer. Low alcohol. It's just enough to make the world taste slightly less gray. And then, before your stomach has even finished processing the meager meal, it's time to begin again. Out to the fields, the woods, the forest edge, wherever your obligations call you. Your day has only just begun, and already you feel the familiar heaviness in your limbs. Not pain, exactly. Just a slow ache that never quite goes away. The sun is up now, though it does little to warm you. If it's winter, the light is pale and watery, like someone tried to stretch daylight too far. If it's summer, the heat presses down on you like a damp wool cloak. Either way, it isn't comforting. You are in the field or the forest, or bent over in the small plot of land you're allowed to farm. You don't own it. Not really. It belongs to the Lord of the Manor. You're working his land today, as you do most days. Your own crops wait until you've finished his tasks. And there are always more tasks. You dig, you sow, you reap, you haul. It's over and over, season after season. There are no machines, no steel plows, no tractors humming in the distance. Just you and wood and soil. If you are lucky, a donkey, not your own back will do. You use a mattock to break frozen ground, a flail to thresh grain. Your hands are tools too, thick-skinned, calloused, dirt embedded so deep beneath your nails, it might as well be permanent. And if you're not in the fields, you're mending roofs, tending livestock, gathering firewood, fetching water, weaving baskets, spinning thread, patching holes in your one tunic with thread pulled from another hole. You do not stop, because rest is a luxury, and time is not yours. You do not carry a clock. You cannot read a watch. Time is not something you schedule. It is something you endure. You measure it by the sun, by the ringing of the church bell, by when the shadows shift past the barn, by the call of the birds that signal evening is creeping closer. Each hour is felt in the body rather than seen on a dial. The Lord has a steward who keeps the calendar, who decides how much work is enough work, who tells you when planting begins and when harvest ends. You trust them because you must. You trust the priest when he tells you what feast day it is. You trust the seasons, though they often betray you, or no paid breaks, no lunch hour. You eat when there's time or when your body demands it. A small break in the day might come at noon or not at all. You chew on cold bread. You sit on a rock, not a bench. You wipe your hands on your tunic, which hasn't been washed in weeks, because soap is expensive and water must be hauled, always hauled. The sky is not just background. It is thread. It is hope. It is everything. If it rains, your thatch roof leaks. If it storms, your fields flood. If it stays dry too long, your grain dies in the soil. You are at the mercy of clouds, wind, frost, and blight. You cannot escape it. You cannot reason with it. In winter, the cold creeps through the gaps in the walls. It bites, stiffens your fingers. You learn to work through it, to wrap your hands in cloth and keep moving. In summer, the sun doesn't bless, it scorches. You squint against it. Sweat salts your eyes. You drink from a leather flask filled with lukewarm water or bitter ale, and you hope it lasts until dusk. There are no weather forecasts, no early warnings. The wind shifts, and you guess. The crops fail, and you pray. Injuries are not rare. You swing a scythe too wide, and your leg pays the price. You fall in the forest, and no one finds you for hours. A boil becomes an infection. A cough becomes something worse. You keep going anyway because you must. There's no doctor, just a village herbalist. A woman with plants and poultices and stories passed down like recipes. Sometimes she helps, sometimes not, and your joints hurt. Even young, they hurt. From the weight of carrying, of digging, of existing in a world that demands more than your body can comfortably give. This, too, is a kind of fatigue. It's the kind that builds up year after year. The kind you stop noticing, because you've never known anything else. The sun lowers itself behind the tree line. The fields fade into shadow. The animals quiet down, you do not. There is no true end to the work, only a point at which the light disappears, and you can no longer see your own hands clearly. That is when you stop. Not because you've finished, but because the day has left you no choice. You return home. Your home, if it can be called that, is a single room. The roof packed with smoke and silence. The hearth glows faintly with embers. A pot hangs above it, maybe with a bit of thin stew or porridge from what was scrounged together earlier. It tastes of root vegetables, ash, and effort. You eat quietly, not out of politeness, out of exhaustion. If you are a woman, the day does not pause. It simply shifts roles. You tend to children, if any are still living. You mend clothes in the firelight with bone needles and thread pulled from old hymns. You need dough for tomorrow's baking. You check on the stored grain and pray that the rats haven't found it again, and you plan. In a way, think ahead to what must be done tomorrow. Not in schedules or bullet points. In instinct. In rhythm. In a pattern that has been passed down without ever needing to be written. There is always more to do. Always something falling apart. Always something hungry. Sleep does not arrive in a bed. It arrives on a straw pallet, shared with others. Parents, children, sometimes strangers. Privacy is not a concept here. The fire gives off a little warmth, but not much light. The walls creak. The wind seeps in through the gaps. You wrap yourself in a rough wool blanket if you have one. If not, you use your own body to stay warm. There are no sheets, no pillows, no locks on the door. If you live near the forest, you hear wolves. If you live near a road, you worry about travelers. If you are unlucky, both. You fall asleep quickly, not because you are comfortable, but because your body has nothing left to give. And when you wake because someone snores, or a child coughs, or the cold pushes through your dreams, you know that the next day will be the same. Slightly harder, maybe, slightly wetter, slightly more desperate. Your tiredness is not a fluke. It is not caused by one bad night or a particularly long week. It is built into your life, baked into the structure of your society, forged by necessity. You are tired because your labor keeps everyone else upright. The Lord, the church, the merchant in town, they eat because you work. They rest because you don't. And yet you are invisible. Just another body in the long procession of the forgotten. There are no weekends, no self-care rituals, no clean pajamas or soft music. It's only the steady erosion of your strength day after day. And still laugh sometimes. You sing. You find joy where you can. In a good harvest, in warm bread, in the sound of your child's voice when they're not coughing. It is not comfort, exactly, but it is something. We remember the Middle Ages through castles and crowns, but the truth of it lives here in the mud, in the silence, in the constant ache of lives that were spent in service to survival itself. You were tired because the world demanded everything from you and gave back very little. You were tired because rest was not your right, but a rare mercy. And if you had a moment, just one, to lie still and feel the straw beneath you, the fire flickering on the wall, the sounds of a world slowly sleeping. You would have known it wasn't enough, but you would have taken it anyway. Because in the Middle Ages, rest was not about comfort, it was about continuing.